Hey everybody, this is DM Mike, and this is Conducting Music Part 2. Not really sure how many parts there are going to be to this, but you know what? I'm kind of winging it, so we're just going to keep running with it. But the first episode talked about, I think, some of the common mistakes we can make when running our music. Now, of course, it's just my personal opinion. If your your players and you as the DM are enjoying the way you played music, then there's nothing to change here. There's nothing you need to even worry about. But I think if you want to try to pull back a little bit, change your style up, and maybe use that music to be a little more impactful, maybe there's some advice here that would, help you do that. Now, one thing I didn't talk about in the first video is where I purchase my music. And of course, I'm going to be doing soundtrack recommendations, hopefully once a week. We'll see how this goes. Possibly, I think once a week is pretty reasonable. But I'm going to be suggesting these music, and of course, every time I suggest the music, I'll tell you where I got it. But I thought I'd at least give you maybe a list of places you can start to go to right now to start just kind of, scouring music to see if you find anything you like. Now, I roughly have like a top 5, top 6 sites that I typically will go to. I'll highlight them here. They're nothing really groundbreaking. Perhaps you've found these sites on your own or you've stumbled across them. But for those maybe just starting to use music, maybe this will help. All right, well, the first one I go to, let's go ahead and get into it, right? The first one I go to right now that's kind of a diamond in the rough is Bandcamp. Bandcamp's the first site that I typically go to now to just search for any kind of music, especially for things like ambient music or dark ambient or whatever. I think there's a whole playlist there, album listing you can go to that breaks down all these artists and all their albums who create this kind of stuff. And I found it to be very, very impactful in my campaign. It's kind of music, but then kind of not. It's a mix of sound effects and ambient effects, but kind of the same thing, and a little bit of music here and there. But it's really, really great stuff and can really help kick up that verisimilitude in your games. But Bandcamp has a lot of just unique titles on it from indie artists, from any type of genre of music. And of course, one of the areas that I scour constantly, was 2 areas that I scour constantly on that site. It's the ambient playlists and also the video game music. And what's nice about the video game music is you can find current stuff, not everything, but a lot of good current stuff that comes from AAA gaming, all the way down to indie titles, stuff that you wouldn't find on Amazon or iTunes or anywhere else. And that's a really great thing because there you can find a gold mine of a lot of material that a lot of players probably haven't heard before. So Bandcamp to me is like the prime spot. If you want to start searching for music, start there. And of course you can download it just like you do in iTunes and whatnot. It comes down as an MP3 or WAV, I think even FLAC, which I'm not even sure exactly what that is sometimes. I need to research out a little bit more. But you can get the copies. Matter of fact, the ambient pieces I recommended by the guy who does the D&D ambient effects was on Bandcamp. And I have all 3 of his releases. And it's just, man, it's just so much unique stuff. So start at Bandcamp, all right? That's my first suggestion. Next, are far more typical, I would say, Amazon. Amazon I go to really to buy more physical copies of CDs. Matter of fact, I just bought the 2016 Doom soundtrack on CD because I really wanted that hard disc, the hard copy. I love that kind of stuff. And of course, it's also just a freaking rockin' soundtrack. But Amazon, I typically will get really about 85% of my purchases there are physical copies of CDs, and maybe like the last 10 or 15% is digital purchases. It seems to be the nature of soundtracks right now. They're all going digital. So most of my library now is digital. Next up, of course, would be iTunes. iTunes, of course, their video game section is starting to get a little bit bigger. I wish they would curate it a little bit more, kind of fine tune it a little bit more in their search parameters, but it's growing, and that's another place where you can get a lot of great albums. I don't have as many there as compared to Bandcamp and Amazon, but you can find a lot of great music there on iTunes. And plus, if you want to keep your library consolidated into one digital storefront, unlike you can do for games, but one storefront in iTunes is the way to go. Plus, I also use my iPhone to stream a lot of my music to Bluetooth speakers and when we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and that really does kind of help keep things in one spot. So there's my top 3, right? But there's a little bit more. There is a little bit more. The next one, maybe you haven't thought of, but I would highly recommend, is GOG. GOG is a storefront like Steam and Uplay and all the other ones, right? But what's unique about GOG is that most of the times when you buy a game, you get the soundtrack. And I'll tell you, a game coming with a soundtrack is almost an insta-buy for me. I will buy it almost for the music alone because I know it's so hard to find that music anywhere else. But if you go to GOG, you can find really current games, right? Current games that are coming with soundtracks, like for Witcher 3, great soundtrack. I've actually used it in my campaigns. And I know that sounds like maybe that goes against using highly recognizable music, but I have found that most people don't even think of Witcher when they hear it. It's usually kind of after the fact. They go, hey, what was that track number, the third track you were playing? I tell them what it is. It's like, oh, The Witcher. No wonder it kind of sounded somewhat familiar. So it's good when you can kind of straddle that line where people don't quite know, but they really enjoy it and they just want to know where it's from. But anyway, so GOG Galaxy, or just GOG, it's like the GOG store, is a really great place to find this stuff because you'll find old games that have really fantastic scores and current games, not all, but most good chunk of current games that will also give you the soundtrack. The last two here that I can think of, and if I think of any more, maybe I'll put them in the descriptions below. But another one that I go to, and this is for only physical copies. If you just want physical copies, this is, you're not going to get digital purchases here. And that's I think it's La La Land Records. Now, it's a bit obscure. The titles they have there, it's for really old classical movies to more recent stuff, but I have purchased a lot of great hard copy music for them. Funny enough, a lot of it has been comedy music for my comedy D&D campaigns. Yes, I do run campaigns that are all about comedy. But I recently picked up, I think, like 5 or 6 titles a couple years ago for a D&D comedy campaign. I picked up the entire soundtrack from all 3 films of Naked Gun. I picked up a Family Guy soundtrack. I picked up Spaceballs, the original score. I picked up Airplane, the original score, and so many others. Now, it's not just comedy. There's all kinds of things there. You can find some soundtracks that go to a lot of the DC Universe movies, and of course, classic films, and even things like Die Hard. The entire Die Hard score, which I would like to get. I think it's actually pretty intriguing. I think I could use that music, and a lot of people wouldn't even know what it is. But you can find some really great, unique titles. Now, a warning about La La Land is that some of these things they're only going to make like 800 copies or 1,000 copies on some of the titles. So you may or may not get that title. And sometimes, like a lot of the DC title stuff, for some reason, is ridiculously high priced. For instance, I have the first Batman music from the Batman series, just like season 1, and that was pretty expensive. And once you get past season 1, when you go into season 2, the markup on those things is pretty huge. But again, you're finding unique titles. And yes, I even use that Batman music for my comedy routines, my comedy campaigns, because there actually was some really good music in that, and nobody knew where it came from. So La La Land Record, check it out. I got my Kroll music there, and of course all the other titles I talked about. You'll find some unique physical copied, sometimes limited edition, and sometimes even signed by the composer. A really great site to go to. And finally, this one's I used to visit this one, but I think they're kind of stepping up their game. I need to check them out a little bit more, but I will go ahead and recommend them just to kind of, as a kind of a last resort right now. And that's like this, I think it's called the Screen Archive Guild. I think that's what it is. If I got it wrong, I'll correct it down below. But there I find some of the rarest stuff. For instance, I got the Dark Crystal 2 CD set that was limited to a couple thousand copies, and I've never seen it released again. And that's where I found that soundtrack. And it was like $30 or something like that. This was years ago. But on that site, you can find really some rare stuff that is sometimes weirdly stealthily released. I don't know why they do this. They just now started sending out newsletters after all these years. I'm not sure why they were taking so long. But you can find some rare stuff there. Now, I haven't looked at all their categories and how they break things down because it's been a while, but I'll recommend them just to kind of go through and look. Maybe you'll find some unique stuff there. Now, of course, there's a lot of storefronts. There's a lot of things. There's some things that probably I've even forgotten about, but my go-to staples is that list itself, especially like Bandcamp and Amazon. And Amazon, I'll get the physical copies, like I said, but also Amazon has actually kicked up a lot of their soundtrack categories. There's a lot. It's a lot digital stuff. But for instance, Guild Wars 1 and 2, you will find 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different albums, which I'm going to pick up quite a few of those for Guild Wars 2 on that site, as well as the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, I haven't listened to a lot of the music. I think if you played Skyrim at the table, most likely you're going to get everybody going, ooh, that's Skyrim, and really blow any verisimilitude you had out of the water. But I've noticed that Elder Scrolls Online is releasing a lot of soundtracks through Amazon. Maybe it's on iTunes too, but I see it all the time on Amazon. And that might be a way to go. I'm going to listen to some of this stuff and see if I can use it, especially Guild Wars 2. But one of the things I could say is just look, just make a wish list, especially like on Amazon. Go through on iTunes. I think you can do it on Bandcamp. You can do it on Bandcamp as well. Just make a wish list, and when you want to do a gothic campaign, well, then you go purchase that music. When you want to do a comedy campaign like I have done, which we're going to talk about here in the next radio dramas, you go and you buy that music, and so on and so forth, right? So you make these lists and just purchase the music when you need it. So anyway, guys, that's it. This is Conducting the Music Part 2. I just wanted to give you the main sites that I go to. And again, I'm not getting paid for this stuff. There's no paid promotionals crap going on here. This is just me as a regular consumer who has found his niche, and this is the sites I go to. If I can think of anything else, any other site, I'll try to put it in the description below. Anyway, guys, I hope that helps you kind of get started if you're a veteran or a beginning DM. That these are the places to go. And please, really check out Bandcamp. Give Bandcamp a try. I mean, it's really no different from iTunes. You're getting a digital purchase, you download it and you play it. But you're going to find a lot of unique stuff there that'll really help your campaign. All right, guys, that's it. That's all I got for today. More stuff to come, including, I think the next video is most likely going to be then my first soundtrack recommendation. All right, guys, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.